Welcome back everyone to Genshin Interact. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming 4.7 banners, at least what is speculated to be. Now we do know that Chlorron and Sigewinne are going to be upcoming in both of these phases, and normally with 5 stars they are going to be taking up either side, so we at least know that for sure Chlorron and Sigewinne are going to be on opposite sides, most likely starting with Chlorron and Sigewinne on the second phase, with Chlorron on the first phase. Now the first set of banners that we're going to have most likely is Chlorron and Alhaitham. Looking at Chlorron and Alhaitham, kind of these two characters together, we have an Electro character DPS with a Dendro character DPS. So Rift, what are your thoughts at least on this first two characters on the banners?
I mean, honestly, looking at these two characters, we already have talked about Chlorran's kit. We did have a video going over that, kind of a pre-release, and we do know that she's going to be a DPS unit, pretty much for sure. So with two really good DPSs at that on the first half, I think it's kind of a take your pick, especially for new players. It's like, well, do you want an Electro DPS or do you want the Dendro DPS? And I think it's gonna be good because we already know right now that Alhaitham is like one of the top 5 DPSs in the game. I mean, in terms of just DPSs, he's remained in a pretty solid state since his release, staying at the top of the chain competitively with Nervalet, Arlecchino, and a few other characters. I think he's done pretty well for considering, just how he's not that old, but he is a little bit dated. So I think he's done really well, and I think part of it is because he is Dendro. So he's a great unit, and I think Chlorran's also going to be a really great unit. I think, I've seen people talk about the question of, is she going to power creep a character like Raiden, which that's crazy to think about because she's an Archon. So the idea of her getting power crept is a little scary. Personally, I find it difficult to see happening just because, yeah, she is an Archon, and the fact that she is a DPS, but on top of that, she's a universal battery. It's hard to replace something like that. So maybe in terms of damage, Chlorran could probably put out higher potential with more investment maybe. But something like Raiden's energy restoration for the entire team, I think is something that's going to stay unique to Raiden throughout the game just because she is an Archon. I think the Archons, it's important for them to have something that kind of stands out. I don't know. Would you agree with me on that one?
I think that no matter what, Raiden is going to stay at the top. And that's just because of how easily, obviously, in general, she's going to be easy to build. I'm kind of looking at both of these characters, kind of jumping back to that real quick. Alhaitham is probably going to be a little bit better in terms of maybe what somebody new or doesn't have either characters and kind of wants a DPS character if they're looking at who they kind of want between the two characters. I think Alhaitham is going to be the better one. Not only can he probably be a little bit better to use a weapon like Harbinger of Dawn, which is a 3-star weapon. He's got a lot more capabilities to use a lot more different types of weapons. I think just because of his dual scaling in attack and elemental mastery. So there's so much, and it's a lot easier to build. I think a lot of his kits and whatnot are going to be a lot easier to use. The only thing is, obviously just understanding his kit might be a little bit more... a little bit harder to understand, but I do think that Chlorran is going to be a good character. I think she's going to be good. I know that in speculations and whatnot, she's been getting a lot of buffs and whatnot to just kind of boost her a little bit more because, at least from what they were seeing, she was doing a little bit less damage. But I don't think that she's going to necessarily power creep Raiden. Now, we've seen constantly in Fontaine, it's almost the land of power creep, where you're getting one character that's just doing better than the next. Nevlet obviously came in here and then just completely shattered Hydro characters, and now he is the best DPS really in the game. Arlecchino obviously came out here, and you kind of saw that with the story, how the Traveler, if spoilers by the way, if you have not caught up to the story, but with the Traveler couldn't even beat Arlecchino, and we've been able to beat every other character, or every other Harbinger. So, and obviously, I guess technically you could say she forfeited, technically, but in terms of actual raw strength and power, she beat us. And so that just goes to show her strength, not only in, lore-wise, but also just obviously in the game, that we see how easily she's able to use, never mind a 3-star weapon as well. So to see that, I do think that Chlorran's going to be a good character, but like you were talking about, energy restoration from Raiden, the huge hit burst with the great normal attacks that come afterwards, national teams that she can use. She can use a lot of different characters with her, and she's great with helping supports get their energy back. Plus, she's on a pretty good set that a lot of characters are going to use, so it's pretty easy to grind. I think Raiden's just going to stay where she is for a while. I don't necessarily think Chlorran's going to touch her or get close to her.
Yeah, for sure. Regardless of all of that, I think she will, that is Chlorran, will be a very good character to pick up if you do want her. So just throw in some Dendro supports and stuff like that. I think she'll have several different team options. But looking at the other side of Phase 2 of 4.7, what we have right now is suggesting that it's going to be the new character Sigewinne alongside of Furina. Finally, we're getting the Archon to run back. Okay, whether you see her as the Archon or not, you know, the character that was foreseen as the Archon of Fontaine. We're getting her rerun, finally. I know a lot of people have been wanting this. They wanted that for 4.6, so she might be showing up in 4.7. So that is definitely some good news for, you know, those people out there. For me personally, I want to pick up her weapons, so that'll be good for me. But as far as Sigewinne, you know, we also had a pre-release on her as well, if you want to check that out. But this is a double Hydro banner, so obviously I'll just say my thoughts right off the bat. I think Furina is definitely the better pick of the two, just because Sigewinne is more kind of a full healer. She doesn't really bring a lot to the table besides that. So Furina, I think, in my opinion, is the better pick. But they could be used together just because of Furina's drain mechanic, and Sigewinne can kind of help with that. So if you get both of them, or you want to go for weapon and you get Sigewinne's weapon, if you're going for Furina's weapon, well, you can get both the characters. I think, you know, there's some stuff that could work out, but if you are a new player, I will just say Furina is the one of better value here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with you wholeheartedly that Furina is going to be the better choice of the two characters. Looking at Sigewinne, like you talked about, we kind of did have a pre-release guide already, and it's kind of weird because it's basically a Kokomi 2.0 that you're seeing in Sigewinne, and damage character that's a healer, at least from what speculations and a lot of people were using teams with, at least for her in the beta and whatnot, you weren't really seeing a lot of her as a support. 9 times out of 10, if not all the times that I saw personally, was just her as the on-fielder. And that can kind of be a little bit off-putting, and not a lot of people are really going to want to pull for that. But, you know, this is towards the end of Fontaine, and so maybe a lot of people are going to be, besides Cloron, besides that first half, I think people are going to be pulling a lot on that first half and kind of waiting until you see a lot of characters in Natlan. Now, Furina is going to be probably the best part of this. Like you were talking about, so many people are just going to want her if they don't have her, or they maybe want that C1 because I believe that increases her fanfare stacks by 150. And like you want her weapon. If you don't already have like something like Festering Desire or whatever, if you are an old dinosaur like me and you've been playing the game forever and you have that weapon. But I think that at the end of the day, you know, out of these two characters, though, Furina is the better pick. Not only is she one of the best supports in the game, you know, but, you know, just in general, she's more usable and actually probably more desired. I think a lot of people like the idea of Sigewinne, like her character herself, but her kit, I think, is extremely off-putting. But I think both of these kind of banners are kind of interesting because on one side you've got, you know, 2 extremely good DPS characters that are probably going to be very, very good. You know, Alhaitham, like we talked about, staying in the top 3 basically for the longest time as damage, like the best DPS characters in the game. Cloron maybe trying to push top 10 maybe, or maybe even the top 5. You know, just seeing how she can really, as soon as she comes out, we'll be able to finally be able to gauge how she's going to work. And then it's kind of interesting to see that dynamic because the opposite side is almost completely different. Either you like Sigewinne or you like Furina. There's really no in between. Not a lot of people, I think, are really going for necessarily both. I think people who want Furina have kept their eyes on her since her original release and maybe couldn't get her. And then people who want Sigewinne are like, you know, Sigewinne's the only thing that they see in this near future. They don't even see 4.6, 7, or 8, any other character. Sigewinne is the only one they see.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. Like, this first phase is like your DPS phase. Your second phase is the kind of support. You've got a healer and you've got a buffer. So it could be interesting, I think, for a new player. Now, I will give Sigewinne some, you know, benefit of the doubt. It's still, you know, it's unreleased. There, you know, things can change in the beta. She could actually be doing something crazy in just playtesting. I mean, when we look at Navia, when she came out, she was just doing way more than people were expecting. And I think people had a low bar, you know, just because of being Geo. Who knows, maybe Cloron and Sigewinne will be characters that kind of bring something like that as well, where we're given what we have for the pre-release data, the leaks, the, you know, beta testing and whatnot. But then when they, on the release day, we have that low bar, and then it's like, wow, this character's actually doing a lot. Like, what's going on here? I did not expect this. You know, and even Baiju, you know, being at the very end of the Sumeru arc, a lot of people, I think, were expecting something a little bit on the lower end, but he actually turned out to be a really, really good unit, especially if you didn't have other healers. He's a pretty good unit. Most people put him in S tier. Some people put him in A tier. Who knows? Sigewinne could probably be up there. Just I think it just depends on the numbers and the practicality of actually playing and using her when she does release. So we'll have to see what happens.
Let us know what character you guys are looking forward to, or maybe if your primos necessarily aren't going to help you out too much with that. But that's everything we've got for this video, so we hope you guys did enjoy. Please go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.